How you doing, guys? One thing I've become more sensitive and more aware of, and I don't know if it's just in my area, nationwide, or what, is parents that continually pay their kids' bills. This is long after they've grown up and moved out. Every time their offspring has a financial problem, the parents come in and bail them out. We've got one guy in the neighborhood that is pretty much an expert on everything. He'll tell you. When the neighbors are out working on their cars or whatever they're working on, he'll come over and give his expert opinion. When the power company or the street workers are working somewhere in the neighborhood, he'll give his input. He has not worked in about 25 years. He moved in with his mother some 25 years ago. He is now currently in his 50s. She paid all the bills. She paid the mortgage. She paid the water. She paid the electric. About 3 years ago, we had a storm come through. It had knocked the power out of their house. So when the power company came by to work on it to rehook the power up, the place had been rigged over and over so many times, but the power company says, we're not working on this until you repair it up to code. As time went by, they hadn't repaired it. So they were without power for some time. It was about a year went by when the state found out that this elderly woman was living under these conditions. They pulled her out and moved her into a nursing home. Now nobody's paying the bills. He's still living there. Now not only is there no electric, there is also no water. It's kind of scary. Yet he still gives his expert opinion on whatever it is you're doing. Yet the guy can't do the simplest thing like find a job. He's at an age now where he's probably not the most hireable person, and at this stage of the game, he's also looking like Walking Dead. When he comes near, the neighbors tend to veer away. Fewer and fewer people are talking to him. I'm amazed the bank hasn't foreclosed on it yet. Like I said, it would be a simple fix had he thought about it 3 years ago. My thing is, if you need an income, you go out and get a job. You pay the bills. You have this repaired. But the house has been without electric and water for several years now, and that's itself kind of a scary thought. And this is not only his fault, but also his mother's fault for moving him in when he should have been out on his own, probably, if anything, supporting her instead of her supporting him. He doesn't know how to handle the most mundane issues because he never learned how. This is the problem with a lot of parents. I recently, in recent months, worked with one guy, told me he had to quit. This guy was in his 30s, and I asked him, why are you quitting? And he says, well, my parents are moving. And I'm like, so what has that to do with you? Well, they're moving, and I'm going with them. And I asked him about it, and he says, well, I kind of take care of them. Come to find out, it was quite the reverse. They handled his money, they handled his bills, they handled everything. And my thing is these parents, they're not doing their kids any favors. Let's face it, when we all move out on our own, we're all going to get banged up here and there. That's how you learn not to fall off the bike. See, when you got training wheels, you take the training wheels off, yeah, the bike is going to tip over a few times and you're going to wipe out until you learn how to handle that bike without the training wheels. But so many people are keeping the training wheels on that bike well into their 30s, into their 40s, to the point where their kids don't know how to handle the real world. And the parents are not going to be around forever, and that's what they're not thinking about. Eventually, that kid's going to, they're grown adults, are going to be on their own, not knowing what to do. And this pretty much was the problem I've noticed with many Jehovah's Witnesses that leave the organization with the false perception of what the real world is really like. Let's face it, I came in, so I was pretty well grown when I came in, but I can't imagine being born in and hearing the perception of the real world like they do. When they leave, let's face it, Watchtower sets them up to fail. Now, this is the difference between those parents and Watchtower. See, The parents that continually pay the kids' bill, they think they're doing their kids good when they're doing them harm. Watchtower does the JWs harm intentionally. See, they set them up to fail. They give them a false perception of what the real world is like. They get them afraid of the big bad wolf outside of the organization to the point where they're not seeing the big bad wolf inside of the organization. So when they leave, whether disfellowshipped or whatever the reason is, they trip up and they run right back into the organization rather than learn how to pick up the pieces. Many JWs do very well once they leave. I mean, my life seriously improved once I cut ties with them. Many JWs don't do so well. Now, I knew a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses that secularly did okay and were able to support themselves, were able to handle their own bills. I knew a few that struggled because they never learned how. This is something that Watchtower doesn't. They get them too reliant on them. They can't stand on their own. Now, much like those parents, and unfortunately, there comes that day where the parents say passes on, or they're in a nursing home, and they're no longer able to support those overage kids. What happens when Watchtower is no longer there? I contend, and I've said it before, that Watchtower is going to bail on Jehovah's Witnesses. JWs don't seem to think so. But they are basically going to take the money and run. If it comes down to it, they will drop Jehovah's Witnesses like a rock, because they really don't care about you. They're keeping you reliant, they're keeping you needy, and you're going to be like that little kid when their parents don't come home. You're going to be like, where are they? You're going to be lost. This is why it's important, Jehovah's Witnesses, to learn how to survive without Watchtower. There is a world outside without Watchtower. You cannot remain reliant, and that's the problem with the world today. It's not just Watchtower. The society right now, all over the planet, wants to keep people reliant on this, reliant on that. They don't want people that are self-sufficient. As every generation goes by, I'm noticing fewer and fewer people can take care of themselves. It amazes me, the most mundane things. People don't know how to sew anymore. People don't know how to cook anymore. Let's face it, not everybody's good at everything, but if you learn the basics to survive. But it just amazes me how many people cannot cook anymore. And that was the fault of the TV dinners way back in the 1950s. Then your fast food restaurants, they made things too convenient. And Watchtower does the same thing. They don't want you to be able to take care of your own problems. They want to keep you reliant on them. And that's not a good thing. Because when you step out into the real world, you're getting a false perception. And I feel sorry for the born-ins, because the fears that are drilled into you as a kid stay with you for a very, very, very long time. If not forever. You just have to learn how to handle those fears. When I grew up, I wasn't afraid of thunderstorms. I mean, that was just something that I had no fear of. My parents displayed no fear of it, so I grew up with no fear of it. Come to find out, my mother was terrified of them because her mother was terrified of them. But my mother was terrified because her mother acted in fear every time a thunderstorm came in. So my mother opted not to show any fear when we had a thunderstorm. And to this day, she's still terrified of thunderstorms. So it's difficult to get these childhood fears out, these childhood misconceptions out. And Watchtower has done one hell of a job in instilling fear of the outside world into Jehovah's Witnesses. It was difficult for them to do it to me because I came in from the outside world and I knew most of what they were saying was an over-exaggeration. Yeah, there's some nasty bullshit that goes on outside the organization. But the same bullshit goes on inside the organization. And that's something they want to keep from you. Jehovah's Witnesses, learn how to take care of yourselves without Watchtower. because they are not going to be around forever. Because when it comes down to it, they're going to bail on you and leave you hanging. Anyways, guys, that was just a thought. I'd love to hear your comments. You guys have a good day, and I will talk to you soon.